Free-for-all Friday. You know, there's not much set up for today. Sit back and enjoy the program. Have a twinkle in your eye like Donald Trump did yesterday when he steamrolled the snowflakes of the national press. Maybe Donald Trump's the snowplow. Maybe that's it. Donald Trump snowplows the snowflakes of the national press, and they are just in a full-on lather, and you know what? He's having a good time. And you know what? Watching it was a good time, too. I've never seen anything like it. And I'd like to see more of it. That's what, you know what? He says things that you wish you could say. That's the bottom line. On the program, Frank Vernuccio, Kathy Hoekstra, Steve Dulan, Liz Peek, and Megan Barth, among others. You're going to need, just get popcorn for today. Maybe some Lucky Charms, because you're going to have fun this morning, all right? Sit back, enjoy. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me. Gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy!
Been a long education.
Yeah, you know, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, so if you didn't see it yesterday, and if you didn't, gosh, I'm sorry, but you should go back and watch replays, I suppose. Donald Trump, kind of a last-minute thing. You know what? You guys want a press conference? I want a press conference. You know, because he's getting hammered on this Michael Flynn thing and whatever's true and whatever's not true. And stories coming out from the Wall Street Journal and elsewhere saying that the intelligence community is holding back information from the president, which turns out, by the way, not to be true. And more of these false news stories aimed at the president. The New York Times runs the same thing, front page news, that somehow the intelligence community doesn't think that Donald Trump can be trusted with the information, so they're holding it back. Turns out to be completely inaccurate. So he says, you know what, let's have a press conference. And despite that swarming national press and aligned members of the Democratic Party in full-on attack mode, the president approval ratings are going higher this week. According to Rasmussen, Donald Trump, despite being the focus of this firestorm of criticism from the talking heads, doing better than one would expect. But remember this. President Trump has been defying the odds and gravity simultaneously since he was first announced that he was going to run for office in 2015. With the press and the left coming at him pretty much nonstop and talking endlessly about a White House in chaos, he strode to the podium like a midway hawker summoned to the sights and sounds of the carnival. With deft precision, the commander-in-chief gave the press something they haven't had in a really long time, a reality check. Boom! The days of the press swooning over Barack Obama with chills running up their legs are gone. Those days are replaced with a guy who says things that most of you would like to. Lucky for me, I get the chance to do that all the time, but wasn't it fun to watch Donald Trump eviscerate the smugness right out of those clowns by hammering them on being totally dishonest? And let's be frank, that's pretty much on the money from what I've been watching. Most of these clowns really believe the Russians somehow rigged the election, and if they help throw gas on the resistance movement, that somehow Hillary will be resurrected from the progressive grave. I have a bit of bad news for you, however. If you're looking for a liberal savior, you'd better get to it, because a brand new Boston Herald poll shows that the artificial Indian Elizabeth Warren gets trounced badly in a matchup with Donald Trump. The old faux native gets pummeled by the guy folks on the left denigrate, insult, label, smear, attack, rip, chuck, slap, and call Cheeto Man. All to no avail. I mean, did you see the twinkle in this guy's eyes? Seriously. He was in full campaign mode. And that is when Donald Trump is at his very best. He enjoyed every minute of it. By the way, the best move the president could make right now, they've been talking about replacing Sean Spicer. The guy they should pick is him. He's his own best press secretary. The ratings would be through the roof every day. There is little debate that the press from well before the election has hammered the president, and many would agree it has been totally unfair. The coverage has been consistently very negative. That's almost impossible to argue. And hey, let's be honest, playing smash mouth football with the press has been a winning play for the president for a very long time. Punching them in the nose wins big with his supporters, and I think a lot of other folks, too, that look at them and go, you guys are just dishonest and smug. And I'm looking forward to the next press conference. I'm not kidding you, because I think it's going to be terrific. So let's talk about Trump and the media. Let's get our first taste. It's clip number 9. It's a couple of minutes long, but you just got to have the flavor. It's like watching a rerun of your favorite team winning a football game and smacking the press around. It's good fun for all the boys and girls. Gather around, get your pencils, and, well, just enjoy. Clip 9. Go.
I turn on the TV, open the newspapers, and I see stories of chaos. Chaos. Yet it is the exact opposite. This administration is running like a fine-tuned machine, despite the fact that I can't get my cabinet approved, and they're outstanding people. So we have a wonderful group of people that's working very hard, that's being very much misrepresented about, and we can't let that happen. So if the Democrats who have, all you have to do is look at where they are right now. The only thing they can do is delay, because they've screwed things up royally, believe me. Let me list to you some of the things that we've done in just a short period of time. Just got here. I got here with no cabinet. We've taken decisive action to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country. Though parts of our necessary and constitutional actions were blocked by a judge's, in my opinion, incorrect and unsafe ruling, our administration is working night and day to keep you safe, including reporters safe, and is vigorously defending this lawful order. I will not back down from defending our country. I got elected on defense of our country, and I keep my campaign promises. And our citizens will be very happy when they see the result. They already are, I can tell you that. We're issuing a new executive action next week that will comprehensively protect our country. So we'll be going along the one path and hopefully winning that. At the same time, we will be issuing a new and very comprehensive order to protect our people. And that'll be done sometime next week, toward the beginning or middle at the latest part.
I think that's Donald Trump. I think of the program, if he takes over for Sean Spicer, which he should, he's just going to be called Eat the Press, because that's what he's doing. He gobbled them for lunch, and they're out there. You know, the thing is, they continue to whine. I watch the programs. I listen to the radio. You guys really don't get it. People are cheering that on. They're like, you lied to us about the polling. You lied to us about Hillary Clinton. You lied to us about Benghazi. You lied to us about Fast and Furious. You lied to us about the previous president. You lied continuously. And yes, does Donald Trump play fast and loose with the facts? Yeah, a lot. He exaggerate? Absolutely. But he doesn't put up with your guff either. And for that, we say thank you, Mr. President. May we have another 14 after. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Hello, Mr. Soul, I dropped by to pick up a reason.
All right, it is 18 after. Hey,
For the thought that
if you want to get involved with the conversation, after all, it is Free for All Friday. You can throw your 2 cents in the kitty and see what comes out. 888-900-9966. 888-900-9966. I am just having a good time watching Trump eviscerate these folks. I was part of the media, all right? I was part of NBC News. I was part of that whole deal. I've been gone for 15 years or more now. And at that time, it was keeling to the left. And it's gone so much farther since I walked out that it's almost unfathomable how biased, how extremely left the media is as a general rule. It's ridiculous. Meanwhile, by the way, just a little bit of news. President Trump signed legislation ending a key Obama administration coal mining rule. He had coal miners surrounding him for the ceremony there in Washington. The bill stops the Office of Surface Mining Stream Protection rule, a rule that went way too far, damaged jobs. And people are going to say, well, he's not protecting streams. Listen, all right, I lived in Montana. I understand coal mining. I was around Wyoming. The streams are plenty. There are plenty of trout and fish and plenty of good things going on. That we weren't destroying the fisheries, then we're not going to destroy them without this onerous rule either. Let's go to Bob checking in from Galesburg. Bob, you're first up. What's on your mind?
Thanks for bringing up a good president. I remember President Eisenhower having a weekly news conference. I thought it was about Thursday afternoon at 4 o'clock. And he would take on the news media just like President Trump. And the big joke for him was he would say, I don't know the answer to that question. I'll come back to you next week. And sure enough, a week later, he would answer their questions.
Yeah, I like it. You know, if Donald Trump had a 4 o'clock Thursday press conference every week, the ratings would be through the roof. People would put it on DVR. They'd record it. They'd watch it. Bob, they'd be thrilled. I mean, did you must have had a good time watching it, too.
Oh, I did. Well, I didn't. I heard it on WKMI. So.
Well, there you go. That's one of our good stations there in the MTN network. Bob, thank you for checking in. WKMI, part of the Steve Gruber Show network, which we appreciate the support down there. But as Donald Trump steps onto the stage like this, a lot of us are wondering, where the hell are the Republicans? Seriously, where is everybody? All the promises of, if only we had all three levers of power, we could do something. Hey, newsflash, Republicans, you have all three levers of government. All three branches of government are in your midst now. And you're still letting Chuck Schumer and the Democrats push you around. You're letting the news media lead you around by the nose. Not Donald Trump, obviously. Does anybody on the Republican side of the aisle have a lot of guts in D.C.? Because we need to see it. I see Joe Manchin, the Democrat from West Virginia, standing out there with the president. He signed this coal mining rollback yesterday. This rule on coal mining rolled back. I'm guaranteeing you that if things like tax reform and Obamacare don't get addressed, and soon, if the cabinet of Donald Trump continues to flounder, if appointments of thousands of civil servants remain on the back burner, I will be among the loudest calling for all of you to be canned. All of you. Do something, Republicans. I'm not interested in you being timid little shrews anymore. Why don't you take a lead from the guy who stepped out and just took on the press one-on-one? It was 100-1 yesterday. Maybe you should, what's the term, grow a set? Mike in Ann Arbor checking in. Mike, what's on your mind?
Yesterday was simply fantastic, and I applaud the president and to those spineless Republicans, and I mean in Congress, in the Senate, all the spineless Republicans in Washington, D.C., you should be ashamed of yourself. But the high moment for me was when he called out Elijah Cummings and confronted the black reporter and saying, you get them for me. You bring the black caucus. I'll sit with them. I'll talk to them. And she sits and looks, I can't do that. Why? That was to me, that was the top moment of this. In other words, he showed himself not to be the racist that they call him, not to be the man who can't be talked to. He was simply magnificent, and all I can say, if it's a 10 out of 10, he had a 20 yesterday, and to every single Republican in Congress, and that means my Congressman Walberg, stand up and start defending the man, Tim Walberg. I've voted for you, and my wife has voted for you. Stand up and show some guts and back this president. That's all I got to say.
Good work, Mike. Thanks for checking in. Free for All Friday. Matt checking in next. Matt, what's on your mind?
Yeah, I wanted to say that they were totally wrong about Trump. With the stock market, they said it was going to go down.
It went through the roof yesterday. It exploded.
They've been totally wrong. And I tell you why this judge is totally wrong out there. According to natural law, our lives trump other people's liberties from foreign countries. See what I mean? Life comes first over liberty.
Life. And then liberty, yes. I understand that. Liberty over equality, trust me. A country that pursues equality before liberty gets neither. You have to have liberty to achieve a nearness to equality, Matt. That's a fact. Thanks for checking in. You got it. Donald Trump was, it was fun to watch. And I agree with what Mike said, because I'm also calling out the Republicans. Hey, kids, Paul Ryan, Mitch McConnell, you need to listen and listen closely. If you guys don't start getting the things done we were promised in the run-up to the 2016 election, we're coming for you next. We are. and I'm not going to sit idly by while you guys are twiddling your thumbs. We want America back, and we mean it. And if you're not fired up for the hard work, we will find somebody that is. Steve's standing by now. Steve, are you ready for some hard work? What's on your mind?
In my opinion, if you go back and look at the footage of all the different places where destruction has taken place with storefronts since inaugural day, you will see a like dress of many people, and I believe we are under an organized armed insurrection, and it's only going to get worse, and I honestly believe that.
Stevie, we're coming back, my friend. Don't worry. The armed insurrection, where? In Los Angeles and New York? So what? That armed insurrection was being fueled leading up to the November election, and so what? They're going to show you protests. I saw it yesterday, protests on TV and protests, not in my neighborhood, not where I work, not the people I know, not the people that I know that vote. They can show us all they want. They did that for a year and a half. Donald Trump can't win. Donald Trump can't get the nomination. Donald Trump can't be president. Donald Trump can't be trusted. Balderdash. Balderdash. Man, I want to see him do that again. 25 after.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
I really am in a good mood today. I could go watch that news conference I could re-rack it and watch it and enjoy it all over again. Nothing like it. The press in full on meltdown. And who cares? The press has been full on meltdown since June of 2015, and they still don't get it. They think they can get preachy and get up there and say, well, he's awful, but this time he's really, really, really awful. And somehow it'll make some difference. Guys, you don't get it. See, when the coal miners are around him, and Joe Manchin gets it from West Virginia. You notice he's in a lot more photo ops lately. Every time the president does something, there's Joe Manchin, Democrat, West Virginia. He's tying his wagon to the horse that runs. My next guest, Frank Vernuccio, editor-in-chief, New York Analysis of Policy and Government. Frank, good morning.
Good morning. It's great to be with you again.
How are things?
Doing well. I think the press is not having such a good morning. They might be experiencing a bit of a hangover this morning.
I've never seen, the twinkle in Trump's eye. Let's be honest. He loved it. He absolutely loved it. And I'm thinking, people are talking about, let's replace Sean Spicer. I agree. Let's replace Sean Spicer with Donald Trump. We'll all have a good time.
Well, what's fascinating, of course, is that the more the press criticizes Trump, the higher his ratings go. We've seen in the past couple of days, as Donald Trump has attacked the media, his ratings go from about 49 all the way up to 55%. And it was quite similar during the campaign as well. The more vitriol the press launched in Donald Trump's direction, the better his ratings were. It's interesting that Donald Trump, who is essentially a political novice, gets that a lot more than a lot of the political professionals seem to.
Here's the thing, you go back to, and I don't know if you're a sports fan at all, Frank, but you go back to the old adage, if the play's working and you're running over left guard and it's picking up your 5-6 yards every time, when do you stop doing that? As soon as they stop the play. And as long as Donald Trump keeps punching the press, it's good for him. I mean, it's good fodder, and it gives him good ratings, as you said, and it pushes his poll numbers up. So why stop? He's saying things that half the public wishes they could say, and most of the people applaud him for it.
And, of course, the other part is that the public looks around and they see the things that are going on, whether it's in their own lives, the middle class being shattered, good jobs are vanishing, the American economy being tanked, the American national security more jeopardized than at any time since the end of the Second World War. And yet what they're hearing from the media and from the left as a whole is that, hey, we've had 8 wonderful years of Obama and everything has been fixed. They know in their own lives that's not true. They are angry that they've been sold a bill of goods by the media and by the left.
But see, here's the thing. They weren't sold. It's like the snake oil salesman the media is. They're trying to sell you this stuff, and people are walking by looking at them going, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, I ain't buying.
And the other part, of course, is that Trump is considered the ultimate outsider. And the people have seen how both the Democrat Party has been an utter failure in their policies, and the Republican Party leadership has been essentially ineffective or unwilling to really combat the policies that the Democrat left have been foisting on the public. So when they hear Donald Trump say the things that he says, no matter how he says it, it seems like a breath of fresh air, and they are quite grateful, actually, that he's saying it.
No, they are. And here's what the press fails to and it's collective. It's like this herd mentality, but the herd mentality is sheep. And so the sheep are all together, baying, together in the press, complaining, and it's like everybody else looking at him going, guys, we've heard this. We've heard it since June of 2015. You told us he couldn't get the nomination. You told us he couldn't win. You told us Hillary Clinton was going to walk away. You told us Donald Trump was a bad guy and a foul mouth, and he was a misogynist and a bigot and all these other things. And we knew better. We know he's not those things because we wouldn't vote for that. And we know that because we've known him for a long time. And the funny thing is the press loved Donald Trump right up until he decided to run for president as a Republican, at which point he became a horrible pig. That's just, and people are savvy enough, Frank, to get it.
Einstein said the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, the voters have seen the federal government do the same thing over and over again. More taxes, more spending, less national defense, and it's produced nothing but a disaster. So those who are opposing this president are saying, hey, we can't have somebody who's saying what he's saying, who's doing what he's doing. We have to go back and do things the way we've been doing it for the past 8 years. And the public perceives that is indeed insanity.
Yeah, no question. So, all right, so this anti-Trump goal, because there's a couple of congressmen here, Republicans here in Michigan, who've had some small protests outside their office, and they're all organized, and they're like twice a week and sometimes 3, but it's the same groups of people, sometimes a little bit larger, sometimes a little bit smaller, but they're all paid for. You see, and it's not like people don't get it, and go protest in front of the office. People don't care. Because here I am going to work, talking to people that are going to work or retired or whatever, that are working people that have work in their blood, and we didn't, have time to go spend hours and hours protesting and making signs. It's not really what we do. It'd have to be awfully drastic. You know what I'm saying? And you have what we consider to be professional protesters out there, Frank, that really rub us the wrong way.
Well, not only that, the question is, what is their alternative? Look, I covered the inauguration and I covered the demonstrations at McPherson Square. And I had a chance to talk to a number of the protesters. What was fascinating about the protest that day, at least, was that rather than protesting a particular policy, they were protesting the election itself. They didn't really have a lot to say in particular or in-depth about any particular policy that Trump had. After all, the guy was just getting inaugurated.
Trust me, I know. I was in the middle of that women's march in D.C. the day after the inauguration, smack dab in the middle of it, crushed like a sardine in there. There was no coherent message to any of it. It was just a laundry list of what's wrong with America, and we're liberals, and damn it, we demand these things. And it's like, really?
By the way, one of the things the press has utterly failed to cover is that the co-chair of the Women's March was Linda Sarsour. Linda Sarsour is someone who has been pushing the implementation of Sharia law. She believes very strongly in Sharia law. Sharia law, of course, is one of the most anti-feminist bills we've seen in a long, long time. It absolutely reduces women to the level of cattle. She was a co-chair of the Women's March. There's such raving hypocrisy in that you can't even begin to catalog how ridiculous it is. But what's worse than that is that throughout the extensive coverage of both that women's march and several other women's protests throughout the country, no one in the press, for the most part, has even discussed it.
Think about this. They're marching worldwide to protest Donald Trump. He's been in office for 12 hours now. We better get together worldwide and shout him down. I'm like, really? Why don't you guys go back to New York City or San Francisco or wherever it is you hail from? Because in the rest of the real world where people, worry about jobs and kids and going to work every day and, have to drive 25 minutes to get to a grocery store, those folks are voting for Donald Trump. And if the election were held today, more of them would turn out to vote for Donald Trump because they applaud him when he eviscerates the smugness out of the press. They enjoy it. 20 seconds for the last word, Frank.
You have to ask, what right do people in Paris or Rome or London or Moscow or Beijing have a right to protest our president? Last time I heard, only American citizens were allowed to vote. Now, of course, the Democrat left somehow doesn't believe in that, but for the most part, what do we care about protests around the world?
Frank, not listening to those in France is unconstitutional. I mean, the left will tell you so. That's unconstitutional, Frank. Anyhow, good conversation as always, my friend. We'll talk soon.
Look forward to our next discussion.
There it is. Frank Vernuccio, everybody, editor-in-chief of the New York Analysis and Policy and Government. Good guy, fun to talk to, and we'll talk to him soon. Back in a moment on Free for All Friday.
Taking a closer look at the stories that affect you most with a big dose of common sense.
Maybe that should be Trump's theme song when he comes out the next time. For those about to rock, boom! I so enjoy watching the entitled press go into full flat spin. The entitled press, we deserve to be talked to better than this. You talk to the Christian Broadcast Network in town hall, and you didn't call on us first. That's right. I mean, why do you think you deserve special treatment? Anyhow. My next guest, Kathy Hoekstra from the Washington Examiner and many other places she writes for. Kathy, welcome back.
Well, hi, Steve. Thank you so much for having me on the show again.
Yeah, I'd love to have you here. You're a regulatory policy wonk. You're kind of a geek that way, but we love you for that because you get into this stuff deep and you figure out what's going on. And now you're saying, fracking versus Flint, what's it going to be? Is the EPA out of whack with its priorities? While the half of the EPA is in an uproar over Scott Pruitt coming in as the new director of the agency. What do you got for us?
You're referring to the piece I wrote for Washington Examiner. Yeah, it's, there were two reports that came out late last year that, in regards to the Flint water situation, that said, you know what, the EPA did have the authority to step in and do stuff a lot earlier than it did, and sitting around made the situation worse. And in the meantime, they're doing things like spending $29 million to doll up a study that fracking hurts drinking water when it really doesn't. So you kind of put those two together and think, where are the priorities here?
Yeah, fracking, they did the 5-year study, like you said, from the EPA. A 5-year study. In detail about fracking and drinking water. They found no evidence, no connection between the quality of drinking water and let's be honest, drinking water comes from anywhere from 50 to a couple of 100 feet, depending on where you live. Fracking is hundreds of feet, oftentimes thousands of feet beneath the surface. These two things generally don't commingle because the pipes are sealed, and the whole process, if anybody actually bothered to look at the science, the left always wants to talk about the science, right, Kathy? If they looked at the science of fracking, they'd go, oh, this is fine.
And actually, the science did show that on the study. When the first draft came out of the results, it said, nope, we could find no widespread systemic impact on drinking water, but the environmentalists didn't like it, so the EPA went back and rewrote the conclusion and said, well, wait a minute, they just took that sentence out. So it could be inferred that there's impact on drinking water. In the meantime, we have Flint going on. I mean, so you sit there and go, okay, drinking water is such a high priority for us that we're going to pay so much attention to unproven allegations that fracking damages drinking water, and yet you have real problems going on in Flint that create a huge crisis for families and people.
Well, let's remember that, during that time, the EPA administrator for the Midwest also was not around. Why? Because she was out worrying about windmills and global warming and other things that are going to destroy the planet. And, the people in Flint will be just fine. Of course, people in Flint would have been fine if they had given the correct pH level to their water, too. That would have cost about $30,000 a year. But, hey, we didn't do that either, right? So they made a mistake. And they don't care, it seems.
Yeah, well, and you know what? The head of the EPA, Gina McCarthy, who, by the way, has on the top of the drinking water section of the EPA website a quote about how safe drinking water is of utmost priority for the EPA, which I'm paraphrasing, but you look at it and go, really? She's not even around anymore, and so is she ever going to be held accountable? I mean, we went to the regional director for the Midwest, and she got in huge trouble. But, is that where the buck stops? I mean, Gina McCarthy can now run around and give speeches and do all the things that the environmentalists want her to do on their dime instead of ours, which I guess is a good thing. But is she ever going to be held accountable? And then number two, you mentioned Scott Pruitt, the Oklahoma Attorney General, who has been nominated, and I believe he may actually start his confirmation hearings today. Don't quote me on that, but I know they want to get that started finally. But he has a real opportunity here to rein in the EPA, not only its widespread, expensive bureaucracy, but to get its priorities straight.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. There's a thing going on with the inside the EPA, too, where these career EPA do-gooders, I suppose, are pushing back against Scott Pruitt, calling their senators and their congressmen, we can't let this guy get approved. We can't get... Guys, you work for the government. It's not your job, to worry about the minutia of policy. Yet that's what's going on. Kind of unprecedented, actually.
Right. Hey, Steve, do you and I get to pick who our bosses are? I mean, unless we work for ourselves, but do we get to pick who our bosses are?
No. But I did fire myself twice. Anyhow, go on.
Well, I mean, that's utterly ridiculous. And
You're right. I wouldn't fire me either. Go on.
Well, and just think about it. When Scott Pruitt gets in there and starts, culling all of the people who inside his employees who, were very vocal against him to begin with. What are they setting themselves up for once he does eventually get nominated?
Well, they're going to continue to push back. The same thing you see going on inside the intelligence community, where people like Ben Rhodes still hold sway, and creating problems inside the intelligence community, even though we know now that the Wall Street Journal published a false report about intelligence being withheld. We know that the New York Times did the same story on the front page, false story now. And this becomes, these same people that are talking about how lack of credibility the White House has, continually putting news and headlines out that are absolutely inaccurate because of career politicians inside these agencies and different things. Kathy, we could talk about this for hours, but tell you what, let's just talk about it next time.
Okay, sounds great, Steve.
There you go. Kathy Hoekstra here, contributor to the Washington Examiner's Beltway Confidential blog and so much more. You can find her here from time to time. Greatly appreciate her input. The hotline number for you is 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. Back after this.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is the Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, and welcome to it. Wow, what a day it was yesterday. Unexpected Donald Trump coming to the podium with very short notice. Hey, you want a press conference? Let's do that. And it was eat the press. It really was, and that's the best term for it. Donald Trump came out and defended himself. It was campaign mode full on is what it was. It was full on campaign mode. And as a result, he looked like he was having a good time, despite a swarming national press, despite the aligned members of the Democratic Party in resistance and the full-on attack mode of both. The president's approval numbers are continuing to go higher, and I suspect after yesterday's performance, they might go higher yet. According to the latest Rasmussen polls, he's at 55% approval rating among the American people. And remember, Trump has been defying the odds and gravity since he first announced that he would run for president back in the middle of 2015. With the press and the left coming at him almost nonstop, talking endlessly about a White House in chaos, which he says is complete garbage, he strode to the podium, completely at home. Like a midway hawker summoned to the sights and sounds of the carnival that he loves. He loves the smell. He loves the feel. He loves the energy. There he is. And with deft precision, the commander-in-chief gave the press something they haven't had in a really long time, a cold slap across the face and a reality check. And then trust me, they're in full-on, they're lathered up. They can't understand it. They don't get it, and they're not going to get it. They're not. They haven't gotten it since he first announced that he's going to run for president. They have attacked him viciously, relentlessly, continuously, called him names, run him down. Bigot, misogynist, xenophobe, anti-Semite, and so on and so forth. And none of it laid a glove on him. He still came out on top, easily. Now, he's a little loose with the facts. Yes, he is. He hasn't had the biggest presidential electoral college win. He's got the more electoral votes than any Republican in the last few cycles. But the days of the press swooning over Barack Obama with chills running up and down their legs, those days are gone. Those days are replaced with a guy who says things to the press that most of you would like to, and I would, and I do. I mean, you just love to say those things. He eviscerates the smugness right out of those clowns by hammering them on being totally dishonest. And let's be frank, it's pretty well on the money. I mean, the press this week has their latest false story, and it really is, because CIA Director Mike Pompeo said yesterday this is garbage, that the CIA and other intelligence agencies are withholding information from the president because they're concerned about him having it. Pompeo says the CIA does not, has not, will not hide intelligence from the president, period. We're not aware of any instance when that has occurred, period, paragraph. So Donald Trump just decided to eat the press for lunch. And he did it well. And then, frankly, most people enjoyed it. Here, let's take a little flavor. When he's talking about Russia, the media's favorite thing is Russia. Russia, they rigged the election, and it's their fault. Otherwise, Hillary would have won. Okay, clip 10. The president on Russia, clip 10. Go.
Can you say whether you are aware that anyone who advised your campaign had contacts with Russia during the course of the election?
Well, I told you, General Flynn obviously was dealing, so that's one person, but he was dealing as he should have been.
During the election?
No, nobody that I know of.
So you're not aware of any contacts during the course of the election?
How many times do I have to answer this question?
Can you just say
Russia
yes or no
is
on
a
it?
ruse. Yeah, I know you have to get up and ask a question so important. Russia is a ruse. I have nothing to do with Russia. Haven't made a phone call to Russia in years. Don't speak to people from Russia. Not that I wouldn't. I just have nobody to speak to. I spoke to Putin twice. He called me on the election. I told you this. And he called me on the inauguration a few days ago. We had a very good talk, especially the second one. Lasted for a pretty long period of time. I'm sure you probably get it because it was classified, so I'm sure everybody in this room perhaps has it. But we had a very, very good talk. I have nothing to do with Russia. To the best of my knowledge, no person that I deal with does. The whole Russian thing, that's a ruse. That's a ruse. And by the way, it would be great if we could get along with Russia, just so you understand that. Now, tomorrow you'll say, Donald Trump wants to get along with Russia. This is terrible. It's not terrible. It's good. I told him, I said, I know politically it's probably not good for me. Hey, the greatest thing I could do is shoot that ship that's 30 miles offshore right out of the water. Everyone in this country is going to say, oh, it's so great. That's not great. That's not great. I would love to be able to get along with Russia. Now, you've had a lot of presidents that haven't taken that tact. Look where we are now. Look where we are now.
Yeah. Apparently, I just had a couple of callers saying I'm swooning over Donald Trump. Let me be clear. It was enjoyable. I was in the press. I was at NBC News for years. The press needs a cold wake-up call. The press needs somebody. I mean, the press for the last 8 years basically interviewed itself. Really, Mr. Obama, what has been the most enchanting thing about your first 100 days in office? That was a question that was actually asked of the President of the United States when Barack Obama had assumed the office. You know, Barack Obama didn't have an obstructionist Republican Party stopping him from getting his cabinet appointments through, like Donald Trump does. He wasn't under constant attack. In fact, he was under no attack at all from the press, Barack Obama. It was a smooth ride, and it was nothing like what you're seeing now. So did I enjoy watching Donald Trump eviscerate these smug clowns from D.C. who have never been to Michigan or Wisconsin or Pennsylvania to speak of? Yeah, I enjoyed it. And you know what? I'd watch it again. I'd watch Trump eat the press every Thursday at 2 o'clock, and so would everybody else. The ratings would be huge. Now, does that mean I'm not going to let him? Does that mean I'm going to let him off the hook when it comes to things like tax cuts and removing restrictions and regulations? Absolutely not. Am I going to hold his feet to the fire when it comes to putting Obamacare off to the side and starting with something different as he promised? Absolutely. But I'm going to guarantee you I enjoyed watching that, just like everybody else did, except for the press maybe, and the hardcore leftists that don't have a sense of humor to begin with. They're hand-wringing and clenching their teeth today because they just don't understand that this is classic Trump. This is what wins for him. This is what won the election. This is how he did it, by slapping the press around, playing fast and loose with the facts, exaggerating here and there. But at the end of the day, showing America that he cares about Americans first. That's what worked for Donald Trump then. That's what worked for him yesterday. And if he continues to do that, it'll work for him in the future. That's not swooning. That's telling the truth. Get a grip. And if you don't like it, call me and tell me about it at 888-900-9966. That's what Free for All Friday is all about. 888-900-9966. It's the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
I'm the cult of personality. The cult of personality. The cult of personality.
All right, so yesterday, Donald Trump was supposed to announce his new pick for labor secretary, which he did, by the way. Acosta. And, of course, one of the better back and forths over the past few weeks has been with Jim Acosta of CNN, who said the fix is in because Donald Trump won't take questions from the real press. Apparently, you know, the Christian Broadcast Network doesn't meet his standards, although that is a very successful company with a very respected news organization. But Trump names his first Hispanic cabinet pick, Alexander Acosta, to be the labor secretary. Anyhow, I'm going to get you the sound with the exchange back and forth with Jim Acosta yesterday, where he changed the name of CNN. We'll get to that next. Is Steve Dulan, our good friend, the professor, here on the program. Professor, welcome to it.
Good morning. Thanks, Steve.
So did you get a chance to see some of that yesterday? I'm hoping you saw some of that with Donald Trump in the new show that'll be on Thursdays at 2 p.m., Eat the Press.
I did see, I think, most of it in various chunks over the course of the evening. It was highly entertaining. I literally made popcorn.
Well, right. You know, and I had some listener call and say, it sounds like you're fawning and swooning over Donald Trump. You know what? I'm giving the guy kudos for going back to what works for him, which is getting out there. Dude, there was a twinkle in his eye. He was having a ball. And, you know, the headlines, you know, a combative news conference. Dude, he was laughing half the time. You know, he answered serious questions, but he's like, guys, you know, give me some good coverage here or there. Talk about my new Hispanic pick for, you know, labor. Talk about the coal mining. And he gets none of that. But I think that is his element, would you say?
Oh, I agree completely. And it was a breath of fresh air. It gave me hope that the swamp may eventually be drained, though apparently the swamp is pushing back pretty hard right now.
Well, you know, the swamp's pushing back, and they're making it very difficult on him to get cabinet picks through, which was evidenced by, you know, and here's the thing. You look at the headlines on the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal here yesterday, that Donald Trump the intelligence community is withholding information from him because they don't trust him, which turns out to be completely false. The whole thing is false, and yet the news media wants to be taken seriously. These are two major papers, the Wall Street Journal and New York Times, and they want to be taken seriously, and they say you have to question the credibility of the White House. I've got an idea, guys. Stop putting garbage on your front page that is absolutely not true. I mean, Pompeo from the CIA came out and said that's absolute garbage. That is absolute garbage. And how can we trust the press if they behave that way, Dulan?
Well, I've been fed a steady diet of fake news my entire adult life. You know, I actually, even before I was an adult, going back to the late Cronkite years, CBS, it's been slanted, biased, half-truths, and anybody with half a brain has known it for 20 to 30 years at least, that most of the so-called mainstream media is biased. It's very slanted. And
no, you got to jump it. Yeah, there you go. That's all right. We have protections for that. It's okay, Professor.
I apologize.
That's okay. Because I feel the same way, and so do a lot of the people out there. There's no question that, we feel as if we've been. And here's the other thing. We just see this big announcement from NBC News while we're on that topic, that NBC News is putting Oppenheim, I think is the guy's name, who's been in charge of the Today Show, in charge of the entire NBC News division. Can you imagine? Because I wrote about this week, Dulan, because they actually believe that the Today Show or CBS This Morning or Good Morning America are actual news programs, when in fact, they're not. I mean, can you imagine Walter Cronkite putting on an apron, coming out and making his best recipe for Thanksgiving?
Well, thank goodness he never did that.
Think about that. I mean, Mike Wallace coming out and talking about Alec Baldwin's tough challenge of being a celebrity in Hollywood. I mean, come on.
There's the blurring of the lines was near complete, and I say was because I'm just hoping that yesterday marks the beginning of a new era.
Well, of course the media is in a complete flat spin now. Complete flat spin. They have no idea what to do. They think that if they just keep attacking more and more and more, and Republicans in Washington are afraid of the president. Well, if they are, I can tell you that Joe Manchin from West Virginia and Heidi Heitkamp from North Dakota, two Democratic senators, they're not afraid. In fact, they're getting right into saddlebags right there, hoping and praying that it'll help save their political careers. The press just doesn't get the fact that most ordinary Americans that voted for Donald Trump, and maybe quite a few more now, watched him slap around the smugness from them. And they're going, that's what I want to see, because he's saying things that they wish they could.
Exactly right. Voltaire said, common sense isn't. And those of us with common sense, and I number myself in that group, have been just tuning it out and shrugging our shoulders and rolling our eyes and glancing at each other significantly when something that's clearly patently false is accepted as true by a significant portion of our culture. The emperor hasn't been wearing clothes for the several past emperors. It's not like, and I think Donald Trump made this point yesterday brilliantly. He gave Obama a little bit of relief. He said, this has gone beyond Obama, before Obama. This has been going on for a long time. This wasn't a President Obama phenomenon.
Right. It's not the love affair with the media. And, hey, Mr. President, what was the most inspiring and what was the most enchanting thing? I mean, somebody asked him what was the most enchanting part of his first few weeks in office about being in the Oval Office. I mean, really? That is not news. All right, Dulan, I got to run. Anyhow, greatly appreciates the professor here on the program, Steve Dulan. We'll compare notes again next week, and we'll talk about how your snowflake students are doing there at the college as well. All right?
Thanks, Steve.
Have a good weekend. Remember, I am the snowplow for snowflakes. If we can hold a couple of the calls there on the line, we'll get to them. 888-900-9966, 888-900-9966. It is the Steve Gruber Show.
Genuine Michigan common sense on display every day.
Baby, do you understand me now? Sometimes I feel a little mad, but don't you know that no one alive can always be an angel when things go wrong, I seem to be bad.
All right, I'm just going through this and just eat the press. Thursdays at 2 o'clock, the ratings would be epic because I wouldn't miss a moment. Neither would most people. Liz Peek, my good friend and columnist for FoxNews.com and the Fiscal Times, back. Liz, welcome to it.
Good morning. Nice to be with you.
I'm having a fun day. I mean, I could watch that press conference every day, and it's just the press is in full-on meltdown. And Jim Acosta, when he laughed, when Trump looks at him and goes, "It's not fake news. It's very fake news," and the whole room laughs. I mean. And then the headlines, very, combative news conferences. And I didn't find it combative. I found Donald Trump to be in his element. What did you find?
Yeah. I think he actually took the stage, and that's kind of what it was. It was a performance, and it was a very funny thing. I was embarrassingly working out at towards the end of it, and I heard Chuck Todd commenting on it. And then I went back and watched it and watched some other people commenting on it. And it really depends where you sit, right? I mean, the liberal media really did have a meltdown. And just as Donald Trump predicted, today they're all in the mode of describing it as ranting and raving. And, you know, he's sort of out of his mind. Look, I think there is nothing normal, if you will, about this presidency, including the fact that the president is the one who wants to be the spokesman for the White House. And I think we've seen that he's the best at it. He's the best at going up there and saying, look, here's what we're trying to do. Here's what we've accomplished. The New York Times today running a big story about how Republicans haven't gotten very far on their legislative agenda and comparing that to where Obama was at this point. But, you know, guess what, folks? The Democrats have not allowed Trump to get his team in place. So how can they possibly have gotten very far with Obamacare before Tom Price was confirmed? I mean, this is sort of a ridiculous assault, I think, on the effectiveness of this White House. Now, having said that, I do think it's good for Trump to be going out and talking to people, which he's going to do this weekend. I've been talking about that for a couple of weeks.
Sure, he's holding a big rally, right, in Florida.
Yeah, he's going to have a rally, and remember those rallies towards the close of the campaign. He's very effective. He gets sort of rejuvenated by being surrounded. I think this airport hangar where he's going to be will hold 8,000 or 9,000 people. There'll probably be more streaming out onto the tarmac. It's a perfect
no question.
setting.
I mean, this is his element, Liz, and you've got that exactly. And yesterday, I don't care. He had that room. That room was like he had a twinkle in his eye. He was having a ball. I don't care what you say. And then, but let's talk about some of the serious things that have happened the last couple of days when it comes to news reporting from these reporters that they want to be taken seriously. And darn it, the White House doesn't tell the truth. Really? Well, CIA Director Mike Pompeo, as you know, came out and said the CIA does not, has not, will never hide intelligence from the president, period, as was being reported on the front page of the Wall Street Journal, the front page of the New York Times. It's a false story. It's flat out not true, according to every credible source that I see. And yet they want to be taken seriously, and they're going to stomp their feet, darn it, and they're going to make their point. I mean, seriously.
I totally agree. In fact, when I read that Wall Street Journal story yesterday or whenever it was, I thought, my gosh, there's complaints, as you probably read, from reporters at the Wall Street Journal that they're being asked to be, a little bit more in Trump's camp than they want to be. I don't see that at all. I mean, I thought that story was complete poppycock. And in fact, what it said was, yes, sometimes they don't tell presidents everything that they know or where it comes from because they don't want to jeopardize their sources. It was complete malarkey, and yet the headline, which is what 80% of the people will read, was very damning. So I don't know I don't know how this gets resolved, to be honest. I don't know if it needs
to be resolved, and here's why. Trump's running a play that is successful. It's worked since June of 2015. The press, no matter what he does, continues to attack. And instead of realizing that this connects with Americans all across this country, because what he did yesterday is say things that all sorts of folks wish they could say to the press about what's going on. And that further encourages them to say, I'm going to vote for that guy. I'd vote for him again. And I'm going to hazard a guess again, Liz, that other people look at that and go, you know what? I'm all right with him telling them, to clean up their act and get it together and do it right. I mean, and then the other thing the press is complaining about, well, you gave a question to, the Christian Broadcast Network and Town Hall, and those aren't real news networks. I mean, what are you, entitled? You're not only elitist, you must be entitled. Get your nose out of joint. Well, he didn't ask me a question. Seriously.
No, I think, look, these are, I encountered someone last night who's in the liberal media, and what was amazing, actually, was the degree to which they were offended, as you're saying. It's sort of like, this is the right way things happen. And by the way, they've been encouraged in this for decades, right?
They're babies. They're petulant children, but go on. No one
has poked the liberal media, really, in a very long time. Everyone has been afraid of them. But remember, when George W. Bush was in the White House, he talked about one of the New York Times reporters. This was off mic, a sort of casual remark about what an was, excuse my French. And it was probably the most popular thing that George W. Bush did in his entire 8 years in office. People loved it because there is a feeling that this smug, entitled group of liberal media kind of holds sway on what the country hears. And you know what? People are sick of the translation. They don't, and that's why I say.
Well, here's the difference, I think, and if I might jump in here, it's the difference is not watching it this way. It's watching a Republican president who usually stands up there and gets pummeled and takes it and tries to defend and dodge, parry, swirl, twist, and he just goes, no, boom. You're a bunch of snowflakes. I'm the snowplow, and here's how it's going to work. And bam, there it is. And I loved it. And I had a caller accuse me of swooning earlier. I'm not swooning. I will hold him accountable for the policies that he's able to get through. I'll see if the tax cuts come through or the Obamacare or any of the other promises he made. But in the meantime, that was refreshing to watch a guy step up there and not be intimidated, to not back down, to say, listen, Jim Acosta, you're right. It's not fake news. It's very fake news. I mean, I loved it.
Yeah, I think you're right. I do think I do want to see some stuff get going here. I mean, the Democrats have been very difficult, obviously, in Congress. They have held up all these nominations. But now I think that Trump, in the next 10 days, needs to bring the congressional leadership into the White House, lock the doors, and say, what's the plan on Obamacare? Because that is something that affects every American, and they want to see how it's going to work out. And he has made some pretty bold statements about how we're going to see the plan, but I think also the country wants to make sure that there's a legislative plan. How are we going to roll it out? How are you going to get the votes you need, et cetera? Now, some of that may be telling the enemy what they want to hear, but the truth is, he is going to be judged on getting this stuff done, and partly that means working with Congress. I think he does need to make some outreach to Congress.
I agree. Well, he signed an important bill yesterday with coal miners, and who I see behind him? Democratic senators like Manchin and Heitkamp. That's important. There, yeah.
But it was interesting. He welcomed Mitch McConnell, who was standing to his right. Never mentioned Rand Paul, who was behind him.
Well, Rand Paul looked angry. He looked like he didn't want to be there, and he was upset. I'll give you 20 seconds for the last word.
Well, no. I think we all want this to work, right? We want this to work for the country. And yes, I love the battle with liberal media, but it's really important also to get the legislative agenda done. And that unfortunately means Congress. I think other than that, I think he needs to bring Lindsey Graham and John McCain to lunch in the White House, smooth those feathers, because McCain is becoming a real pain in the neck.
That's true. Liz, I got to leave it there, my friend. I do, but we'll talk again next week. Great insight, as always, from my good friend Liz Peek here on The Steve Gruber Show.
Delivering Michigan common sense with a big dose of truth and honesty.
Never before have I turned on you. You look too good to me. Your beady eyes that can cut me in two, and I just can't let you be. But it's a free for all, and a heart I said, you can bet your life. Stakes are high, and so am I. It's in the air tonight.
All right, it's 45 after the hour. We'll take your calls now for the next few minutes. Why not? 888-900-9966. What are your thoughts about the press conference? The president has signed about 5 different pieces of legislation into law, including the rollback on the regulations with coal miners yesterday. Part of the Dodd-Frank rollback, which is a couple of days earlier, with Congressman Bill Huizenga from Michigan's 5th Congressional District, who authored that legislation. So there are things going on besides, all the things that you see in front of the mainstream media. Tom checking in from Rives Junction. Tom, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. And I was doing great sitting on the couch watching the Eat the Press show yesterday, and it was wonderful. I could just relate to all the stay-at-home moms, guys that work out of the house, whatever, just sitting there cheering on the couch like I was. I wasn't planning on watching. Well, he wasn't planning on having a press conference till an hour before he did it.
Right. It was kind of a short notice surprise deal, but I think you're right. I think people sit there going, never seen anything like it. My God, he's finally saying the things that we all want to say. He's knocking these smug people back who I mean, you look at the headlines, Washington Post, New York Times, whatever, and you look at it, that's not right. And you read the story and you go, that's a totally misleading headline or a totally misleading story on the nightly news. I mean, I watched, CBS last night on the evening news just to see what they had to say. Same thing. Oh, a combative press conference. He was laughing. He was having a good time. He was answering questions, and a lot of them. Go on.
Absolutely, and I think it draws a lot of analogies to your lead-in song with Nugent. He says a lot of things that we say, God, I agree with it. I wish he would say it a different way. And I think with Donald, I think if he were to take it to the next level by having you apply for the communications director position.
There you go.
To teach him how to be not politically correct, but more polished in his responses that take it to that next level. All right, he started to do it with relation to Hillary and Benghazi Gate and the email scandal and everything else. But what he fails to do, and he doesn't do well enough, but I'm sure if you were his coach, you could help him.
Well, there you go. You're right. He's in the right vein. He's saying the things that people want to hear, but sometimes he gets a little bit, careless, I suppose would be a fair word to put it. And sometimes he gets careless with the facts, too, like yesterday when he said that he had more electoral votes than anybody in recent history. Not true. And so he gets a little bit careless. Tom, great call. Greatly appreciate you checking in. I'm happy to coach the president, by the way. I am available. I just need a phone call from the White House. We did have one of those this week, if you hadn't heard. Beginning next week, we will be part of the daily press briefings. I hope I'm lucky enough to be there when the Donald comes swaggering in like that, and I have a chance to talk to him. But that's going to start next week. We got a call. We have our press credentials to be one of the Skype seats in these press conferences with Sean Spicer. But like I say, who knows? If the president walks out on Thursday again, I'll be there over his shoulder waving at America and trying to get a question like everybody else and see where we go. And if it's Eat the Press on Thursdays at 2, we'll be there. We'll be watching because you never know what's going to happen, and it's wildly entertaining. The hotline number here, 888-900-9966. It's not just entertaining to me. Look at the ratings for MSNBC or CNN. They're doing okay. Fox has the top 6 or 8 shows, but the news media ratings since Donald Trump has become president, the ratings have been just spectacular in many, many ways. So, he's good. He's good for news. He really is. Now, let's take another sample of what he had to say that we haven't gotten to yet. And this is talking about the illegal alien children, the dreamers, if you will, that have come here, the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals, the DACA law, passed by the Obama administration. Will it stand? He was asked that yesterday. Clip 11, go with Donald Trump.
DACA is a very, very difficult subject for me. I will tell you. To me, it's one of the most difficult subjects I have because you have these incredible kids in many cases, not in all cases. In some of the cases, they're having DACA and they're gang members and they're drug dealers too. But you have some absolutely incredible kids. I would say mostly. They were brought here in such a way. It's a very, very tough subject. We are going to deal with DACA with heart. I have to deal with a lot of politicians, don't forget. And I have to convince them that what I'm saying is right. And I appreciate your understanding on that. But the DACA situation is a very difficult thing for me because, I love these kids. I love kids. I have kids and grandkids. And I find it very, very hard doing what the law says exactly to do. And, the law is rough. I'm not talking about new laws. I'm talking the existing law is very rough. It's very, very rough. As far as the new order is going to be very much tailored to what I consider to be a very bad decision. But we can tailor the order to that decision and get just about everything, in some ways more. But we're tailoring it now to the decision. We have some of the best lawyers in the country working on it. And the new executive order is being tailored to the decision we got down from the court. Okay?
Yeah, there you go. And so we'll keep an eye on what's going on with that. But with the Dreamers, of course, one of these dreamers out west getting a lot of publicity, but now we're finding out there's a lot more to the story. Isn't that shocking that the media would withhold certain facts and not give you the whole story just to tailor it to their agenda? It's crazy, I realize. This part of Free for All Friday brought to you by DTE Energy, providing safe, reliable natural gas to businesses all across Michigan. DTE Energy, know your own power. You're listening to The Steve Gruber Show.
This is Common Sense Radio. Straightforward and no excuses.
All right. Come on now.
This is The Steve Gruber Show.
Call me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
What I said was perfectly right and spot on accurate.
Boy's got a mouth like a cannon, always shooting it all.
Stop. Yeah, stop. I mean, you're way off script.
Got it in me, gonna quit until it all comes out.
Hey, boy.
Been a long education.
Yeah, it's not cynical. It's common sense.
Pay attention to me when I'm talking to you.
I'm gonna rock the nation. Rock the nation.
Genuine, accountable, and raw. Here is Steve Gruber.
All right, it's the only thing anybody's talking about today, and that's the press conference of Donald Trump, the impromptu press conference about an hour before he was on the stage. He said, hey, you know what? You guys want to talk? Let's talk. Let's get down to it. And it's where Donald Trump performs the very best, whether you like the man, despise the man, what works for him as a politician. What works for him as a politician is straight up exchanges in the heat of battle like that. Straight up heat of battle. One-on-one. Let's see here. Let's go to clip 7. He did first announce the selection of Alex Acosta to be Secretary of Labor. That's why it originally started. The first Hispanic member of his cabinet. Clip 7, Donald Trump on his new pick. Go.
I just wanted to begin by mentioning that the nominee for Secretary of the Department of Labor will be Mr. Alex Acosta. He has a law degree from Harvard Law School. He's a great student. Former clerk for Justice Samuel Alito. And he has had a tremendous career. He's a member and has been a member of the National Labor Relations Board and has been through Senate confirmation 3 times, confirmed, did very, very well. And so, Alex, I've wished him the best. We just spoke, and he's going to be, I think he'll be a tremendous Secretary of Labor.
And then he went on to say that the reason he's having trouble to begin with here, if he's having trouble, which he says is way overblown by the media, he said is way overblown by the media as far as what's going on in is how he's being treated and the chaos that is being spread, that idea that his White House is in chaos being spread by the media. He says, come on, there was a huge mess when I got to Washington. And you know what? I wouldn't disagree with that assessment. Here's clip 8, Donald Trump talking about what he inherited. Go.
You know, our administration inherited many problems across government and across the economy. To be honest, I inherited a mess. It's a mess. At home and abroad, a mess. Jobs are pouring out of the country. You see what's going on with all of the companies leaving our country, going to Mexico and other places. Low pay, low wages, mass instability overseas, no matter where you look. The Middle East, a disaster. North Korea, we'll take care of it, folks. We're going to take care of it all. I just want to let you know, I inherited a mess.
All right, so over the last few days and weeks, one of the more contentious relationships between the media and the White House has been with Jim Acosta of CNN. And those two had a little exchange yesterday, too. I want to give you a quick highlight here of Jim Acosta because, as I just mentioned, Alex Acosta was just selected to be the labor secretary. And Donald Trump said he had to go check the family tree to make sure there was no relation between the two. So go ahead, check this out. It's Jim Acosta, CNN, and the president.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
Go ahead.
And by the way, the whole room's laughing. Jim Acosta dropped his head and laughed. And yet the headlines today are about what a contentious press conference it was and combative and all of this nonsense. Go ahead, listen to that again. Play it one more time. Jim Acosta.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine...
Very fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
Go ahead.
Let's take a little longer taste, though, of his conversation about the media, which he feels is not treating him fairly at all, defending his White House and his presidency, and saying he's not being treated properly. It's clip 9, a longer explanation of the president on the media. Go.
I turn on the TV, open the newspapers, and I see stories of chaos. Chaos. Yet it is the exact opposite. This administration is running like a fine-tuned machine, despite the fact that I can't get my cabinet approved, and they're outstanding people. So we have a wonderful group of people that's working very hard, that's being very much misrepresented about, and we can't let that happen. So if the Democrats who have, all you have to do is look at where they are right now. The only thing they can do is delay, because they've screwed things up royally, believe me. Let me list to you some of the things that we've done in just a short period of time. I just got here. I got here with no cabinet. We've taken decisive action to keep radical Islamic terrorists out of our country. Though parts of our necessary and constitutional actions were blocked by a judge's, in my opinion, incorrect and unsafe ruling, our administration is working night and day to keep you safe, including reporters safe, and is vigorously defending this lawful order. I will not back down from defending our country. I got elected on defense of our country, and I keep my campaign promises. And our citizens will be very happy when they see the result. They already are. I can tell you that. We're issuing a new executive action next week that will comprehensively protect our country. So we'll be going along the one path and hopefully winning that. At the same time, we will be issuing a new and very comprehensive order to protect our people. And that'll be done sometime next week, toward the beginning or middle at the latest part.
Meanwhile, the president is going to be on his way to Florida for the third consecutive weekend. He'll be holding a campaign-style rally at the Melbourne airport, kicking off his 2020 campaign early, it seems. And why not? By the way, if you didn't hear me yesterday, Elizabeth Warren, the darling of the left, gets crushed in a head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump. She's liked him in Massachusetts, but beyond that, not so much. Frank checking in from DeWitt. Frank, welcome to Free for All Friday.
Yeah, great show as always. It just boils down to we have a foreign-owned media that's controlled by the globalists. The Democrat Party is controlled by the globalists, and at least two prominent Republican senators, John McCain and Lindsey Graham, get a lot of money from George Soros. So you can tell that this is an agenda, and the Democrat Party basically represents criminals, dead people, and illegal aliens.
Let me ask you this, Frank. Are you having a good time?
Well, I'm thrilled that we have a real man as president.
That's what I wanted to hear. I got to run. It's Free for All Friday on the Steve Gruber Show.
Getting your day started with news from around the state and around the world. Common Sense Radio. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
All right, it's Free for All Friday. We'll still have some time to sneak some calls in around the edges here at 888-900-9966. All right, we're going to let the press conference be for a minute now. We'll get back to it. Don't worry. Megan Barth's still on her way. But first, Jeffery Singer here, adjunct scholar at the Cato Institute and a general surgeon in private practice in metropolitan Phoenix, Arizona. Doctor, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Good morning.
All right. So, when I talk about the Affordable Care Act, I talk to my friends that are physicians of different sorts, and I'll talk to you about it as well, because I believe that you have obviously a better understanding of how it affects you in the doctor-patient relationship, clearly. And some things have changed already that could usher out Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act, and Dr. Tom Price, an orthopedic surgeon now in charge of Health and Human Services. But you see some upside and some downside from what I gather. Let's start with what you think right now.
Well, what I recently wrote about was that it's important for people to realize that when the ACA was passed, it, for all intents and purposes, eliminated health insurance. It basically outlawed it because up until then, anybody could purchase any kind of health insurance that they wanted that an insurance company was willing to sell. And, insurance was basically invented back in the 1600s as a way to protect you against an unpredictable high-cost risk. And you could basically get insurance to this day against virtually everything, earthquake insurance, travel insurance. In fact, insurance companies buy insurance to insure them against losing all their money paying out claims.
That's right. That's what happened at the World Trade Center back in 2001. You're exactly right. Go on.
Right. And back up in fact, new innovations are already coming around, so that by 2008, there was a new insurance product that was already starting to take off to deal with a pre-existing problem. It was called health status insurance, where you could basically, especially it's obviously cheaper to buy it when you're young and healthy, but you could buy insurance that would insure you against getting a condition that would then make you a very poor risk to insure. So that if, you buy it when you're young and healthy for a nominal amount, you pay every year, and then 10 years later you come down with some terrible condition. You come down with cancer, for example, and you want to switch insurances, but nobody wants to sell you insurance. So because you're too much of a risk, so that's when your health status insurance kicks in and buys it for you. So that was already starting to come about. All that was outlawed by the ACA. Basically, the federal government stepped in and said, okay, we're designing an insurance product. We're going to say what it covers. We're going to say how it's going to be structured. So insurance is supposed to assess the premium based upon your risk. Everybody's kicking money into a pool, and the more likely you are to take money out of the pool, the larger the amount you need to kick in. That's the way insurance works.
Sure, and Doctor, and I want to jump in there because I agree with you. I believe that the free market is what it will take to cure whatever ails the medical system here. We have an odd system anyway because of our taxation system. That's how employers ended up on the hook a few decades ago for insurance and so forth, because it was an option they could give employees to increase their compensation, if you will, without a taxable event. Well, of course, that's all changed. But that's what set up the strange system in America. Now, if we decide as a people that we want to, in fact, give a baseline of coverage to all Americans, okay, that's the decision we make as a country. But after that, it has to be the free markets that dictate. We have to be able to buy insurance across state lines. We have to be able to have competitive products. Do you agree?
Yes, but we also have to make sure that we allow insurance to be legal again. So for health insurance, that is, because there are many people are advocating that out of the different reform proposals, but there are some people wanting to keep in place a lot of the one-size-fits-all designs of the ACA. And if we do that, then we don't allow insurance to exist anymore. So the reform that has to come to be has to be one that stops the federal government from designing the insurance plan. It has to allow insurance companies to design their own plans to suit what the market wants, to fit individual people and individual needs, and end these one-size-fits-all programs. As you know, Senator Paul, for example, just has a bill that's been co-sponsored by Mark Sanford in the House. It's got, I think the House Freedom Caucus recently endorsed it. That's a bill that's actually in legislative form that does just that. It basically it gets the federal government out of designing insurance and allows insurance companies to design insurance policies again. And hopefully the House bill that Speaker Ryan said is going to be actually introduced after the President's Day recess, hopefully that'll do the same thing. But there are a lot of people out there who are wanting to keep in place a lot of the quote-unquote good parts of Obamacare. And by doing that, that means they're going to be dictating what the insurance has to look like. And that's not allowing the market to work. It's not allowing insurance.
Well, if we allow people, if you allow people to stay, for example, one of the things they like is to have their kids on, and you have kids that are 26, I suppose, on their insurance. I don't care. If they want to pay for that coverage, that's fine. As long as you don't mandate these things, I'm okay with it. As long as it's a choice, because some companies will offer it and some won't. And that's the market.
Well, actually, prior to the ACA, many companies were already offering that.
That's my point.
Blue Cross covered that. But the thing is, if you wanted that, then you paid a little extra for it.
Right.
But under the ACA, everybody pays the same regardless.
Let me ask you this before we go.
Things they don't want.
We're on with Dr. Jeffery Singer, an adjunct scholar at the Cato Institute. Let me ask you this, Doctor, before we get run out of time here. Dr. Tom Price, what do you make of him? What do you know of him? What do you think?
Well, what I know about him is he's very sophisticated on the topic. He's been involved in a healthcare reform discussion going way back. In fact, he was trying to come up with a counter-proposal to the ACA, but the Democrats didn't want to listen to anybody else's proposals, so they rejected his suggestions. I'm hopeful. He's also a doctor who has been in private practice, so he's very familiar with all the discussions on the free market side.
Right.
And I'm hopeful that he will sort of serve as a facilitator and help to try to shepherd this thing through. But this is obviously something that constitutionally has to be done in the Congress, not in the White House.
And it takes a steady hand.
I think he's a positive pick.
Yeah, I would say so. I agree with you. And it takes a steady hand, which both of you seem to have. He's a surgeon. You're a surgeon. That takes a steady hand. Doctor, great conversation. Love to have you back sometime soon.
Thank you very much.
There you have it. Dr. Jeffery Singer here on the program from the Cato Institute talking about the problems of Obamacare.
Keeping you in touch with Michigan and the world.
You did not love me like you did, but you did. And I thank you. You did not love me like you did.
You didn't have to slap the media like you did, but I thank you. Yeah. I keep I keep looking at different things on the internet today, and I gotta admit I'm having a good time. I am. I'm reading because I don't watch Trevor Noah. I watch him only when he's having meltdowns like he did last night. Trevor Noah saying, we had a really nice show planned for you today. Very civil, very calm. And then Hurricane Trump happened again. And, this is a press conference called Extraordinary by Chuck Todd. Chuck the Toddler. He got his diapers all filled yesterday. Jake Tapper called it unhinged. And people actually watching called it brilliant. Donald Trump in his element, doing what he does best, taking on the media straight up, straight on. No prisoners. One quick thing here. I want to play with Jim Acosta from CNN, who, by the way, has been saying that the fix is in because he doesn't call on me. He doesn't pick me in school. He picked the Christian Broadcasting Network, and that's not right. I'm entitled. Here's what he said to Jim Acosta yesterday from CNN. Roll it.
Just because of the attack of fake news and attacking our network, I just want to ask you, sir.
I'm changing it from fake news, though.
Doesn't that undermine... Very
fake news.
I know, but aren't you...
And see, the whole room laughed. Does that sound unhinged? Does that sound, combative, as the headlines were saying? No, it sounds like vintage Donald Trump doing what he does very best, which is take down the emboldened, arrogant, self-absorbed, self-righteous media. Megan Barth with me now, the founder and proprietor of ReaganBaby.com. I'm guessing you had as much fun as I did.
Popping the corn.
I'm telling you, if we have the new program, Eat the Press, Thursdays at 2:00 in the afternoon, Eat the Press is going to be the best show on TV, and we'll all be watching.
Steve, to disparage the press is un-American.
It's un-American. The fix is in, said Jim Acosta. The fix is in because he called on that very conservative Christian broadcast. How dare Christians be allowed to ask a question?
And then the arrogance of Chuck Todd. He goes on this Twitter rampage after the press conference.
You know what's funny about that? Is Chuck Todd actually thinks that people take him seriously.
I know.
That's what he's so self-absorbed. He is so arrogant. And just he is the epitome of what's wrong with the news media. He really is.
And one of his Twitter meltdowns yesterday, he said, some people may be laughing and enjoying this.
I'd be one of those.
He said, but just take off your partisan hat for a second. And I'm like, you first, buddy. Lead the way.
Well, he doesn't wear a he can't wear a hat because his head's so far up his. Whoops, we've had 2 incidents like that already today on the program. We need to be careful. Alex can only hit the button so many times. So it goes. But anyhow, I'm telling you, Eat the Press. Thursdays at 2, we would all be there. It's the most entertainment I've had in a long time. And I had a couple people call, well, you sound like you're just in love with Donald Trump. I'm in love with what he did yesterday. And let me tell you something, so are a lot of the American people, because he was saying things, God, that we all wish we could say. I do say it, you say it, but everybody wishes they could say on occasion, because who takes the press seriously anymore? These are the same people that told us he couldn't win the nomination. He wasn't a really a candidate. He couldn't win, and after he won the nomination, he couldn't possibly beat Hillary Clinton. He can't win. He can't, and so on and so on. So I'm sorry, press. You have no real credibility. Oh, his ratings can't be 55%. That's just Rasmussen. Yeah, the same Rasmussen that told you the day before the election he was going to win. That guy? Yeah, he's the one that says that his approval ratings are going up, and after yesterday's performance, they're going up again.
Oh, absolutely. He's going to skyrocket to fame. And then I listened to CNN yesterday because my Fox News is out, and so I had to watch CNN after the press conference, and I heard the unhinged comment, and I'm and what's his name? Wolf Blitzer. Wolf Blitzer's like, yeah. Wolf didn't say too much, but I'm thinking.
Wait. Wolf Blitzer. Thank you very much, Wolf. Why are you yelling at me? Why do you always yell at me when you're doing your reports? Anyhow, go on.
Right, but these are the same people. They expect to be taken seriously, yet they were caught red-handed by WikiLeaks through their own words in their own emails to be a propaganda arm of the DNC.
Yeah,
we
Chuck
know they're
Toddler.
hacked. So why do they pretend that they're not?
No, they're in the bag. Chuck Toddler.
Right.
Because
Chuck
that's
Toddler.
little Chucky Toddler. He's one of the guys that got busted. In Extraordinary, any self-respecting news organization would have terminated you immediately. Immediately upon the revelation that you had those cozy little ties with Hillary Clinton and Barack Obama and all your other little leftist pals. You'd have been terminated because that's not a news operation. That is a public relations firm.
Absolutely. And it was funny. I was on the radio, I think, right before the press conference, and someone asked me if Trump is softening based on the fact that he let Michael Flynn go. And I'm like, no, I don't think so.
Yeah, I'm not seeing that, no.
No, not with Bannon at the helm. And this is typical Class A Bannon.
Well, it's classic Trump is what it is, because he had a twinkle in his eye. He was having such a good time. And when he ripped Acosta there, that clip I just played, and no, it's not fake news. It's very fake news. And the whole room erupts in laughter. That's not good. That's Trump his supporters are going, hell yeah, that's what I voted for. And then but on a serious note, the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times have a front page story about how the intelligence community is not giving Donald Trump full details, which turns out to be a complete false story, a lie. And they wonder why they have no credibility and why him punching the press in the nose is so successful. Gee, maybe you could check the front page of your own newspaper and see there's a garbage story again, and nobody's buying
they're
it.
Your typical liberal. They're your typical liberal who just resides in an echo chamber, which is their safe space, and they talk amongst each other, and they think they're doing a great job. They don't know the eddies of the world. They don't know the movement behind Trump. They don't know half the people. They don't know 90% of the people that voted for Trump because they don't reside in New York City.
That's right. They've never been to the back streets of Lansing, Michigan. They haven't been to a farm in Minnesota. They haven't been to a coal mine that's closed in Kentucky where people don't have jobs anymore. You're exactly right. They don't have any connection with that whatsoever. This news media and their love affair with the White House is over, and they can't. They're having like a toxic shock syndrome with Donald Trump, and they just can't seem to get their brains around it.
Right. Yeah. And this is, I remember watching Brooke Baldwin right after the election, and they're still trying to recover. I know. And there was a reporter on the street for Clinton News Network, and he was talking to this painter that had been out of work and couldn't get more than 30 hours a week because of Obamacare. And his sister's premiums were going up to $700 a month. And so the interviewers, ask him why he voted for Trump. And, this Eddie of the world is telling him exactly why, because he can't find work and his sister's premiums are going up. And Brooke Baldwin's like, we really need to do a better job at meeting those kinds of people.
No, you think? You think Brooke in her Lower East Side apartment doesn't really understand what's going on a dirt road in southern Illinois? I find that hard to believe. Megan Barth, hold the thought right there. More with Megan Barth, and we'll hit a couple of your phone calls real quick, too. Barb, Doug, stick by. It's Free for All Friday here on the Steve Gruber Show, and trust me, we are having a good time.
Michigan, born and raised with Midwestern values and Michigan common sense.
Another perfectly appropriate song for Donald Trump today. Go ahead. Bring it up a little bit.
With a purposeful grimace and a terrible sound, he pulls the spinning high-tension wires down.
Yeah, Godzilla walks right into the middle of Washington and says, what's for lunch? What's in the swamp? Quickly to a hotline caller, then we'll get back to Megan. Barb in Rives Junction, what's on your mind?
Good morning, Steve. I'm just wondering, when's Trump going to have a night of the long knife and clean out of all, Obama's implants that are left over? What is Ben Rhodes still doing there? I'll fire him. Then you got McCain and Graham, never Trumpers. Why are these people even around? Trump's so positive. I had the best day yesterday. That was the best thing ever. Very fake news. And then... On a little different note, here's an illegal immigrant in Indianapolis hit the back of a car so fast, so drunk, killed the guy.
Yeah, that happens, Barb. I appreciate the call, and that's part of what we're... And I'm glad you had a good time, Barb. Thanks for checking in. Back to Megan Barth. Here's what the media doesn't get, Megan. People like Barb, like Doug, like Jason, that we'll get to here a little bit later in the program. Ordinary people. They have this notion that somehow, if you... don't agree with them, you're just a thug, you're a knuckle dragger, you're dumb. No, we just have a different vision of what America should be: accountability, hard work, and not just open with a revolving door. I mean, the Democrats really believe that, Megan. Maybe they should stop locking the doors on their car at night, stop locking the door on their flat on the Lower East Side. Why lock your door? Let everybody in. What difference does it make, right?
Well, right, and according to Chuck Todd, Barb will be considered un-American.
Right, it's un-American.
And what's really un-American here, what's really un-American here is the press in and of itself, because a propaganda arm of the DNC is un-American. They have shirked their duty for far too long, and their duty, if they had an ounce of integrity, would be to find the truth and report the truth so the American people could then have the truth to make an educated decision. But instead, they were parrots for the DNC, and they were acolytes of the Barack Obama administration.
There used to be a term for this.
Could you imagine, Steve, if confidential information or a private conversation from one of Obama's lackeys, or Obama's conversation himself with the mullahs of Iran, who he was doing deals behind our back and everyone else's? Could you imagine if those conversations were leaked? The outrage of the press.
Oh, they'd go bananas, But here's what the press is, and this is we just got to go back a little ways to get the proper term for it. It's called yellow journalism. That's all that, it's yellow. You can call it fake news. It's what it is. It's yellow journalism.
Yellow journalism is sensationalized headlines. This is propaganda, where literally they were contacting the DNC members within the DNC, asking if they wanted Hillary Clinton to review their articles, and also saying, hey, does this article match up with the DNC talking points? That's propaganda. Yellow journalism, I completely understand, but yellow journalism is more sensationalism, which they are. They'll sensationalize headlines against their enemy like Donald Trump. They'll sensationalize headlines for their pals like Barack Obama and the DNC to make them look better. But what they truly did was propaganda.
Well, no question. But here's the thing. The Democrats, we're fine. We'll get out of the way, No, you're not. Because here's the thing. Anybody knows in politics, if your name's out there every day, if you're sucking the oxygen out of the room, which Donald Trump is doing again today, he's not only just going to have the 24-hour news cycle, he'll have it for the rest of the weekend because of that press conference. It'll be all they talk about on the Sunday shows. It'll be all they talk about all weekend. And that's all they're talking about is Donald Trump. And I'm going to tell you, and I guarantee this, the people that support Trump, like Barth that just called and others, they're more supportive of him today than they were yesterday at this same time. And that will continue to grow. And Rasmussen is right because the ratings keep going up and up. In the left, they can continue to have their little protests and little temper tantrums, little histrionic affairs. It doesn't matter. They're getting farther and farther behind.
Yeah, and I absolutely love it. I'm loving watching the meltdown. And the more they melt down, the more insignificant they become. You know, and it was great point that Donald Trump made yesterday. He said, I'm not dividing this country. This country was long divided before I got here. And for a reporter, African-American woman, to ask him, are you going to contact any members in the Congressional Black Caucus to talk about how you're going to fix the inner cities?
Wasn't that a great answer, though? Tell them to call me. I'm willing to sit down with them. I'll have the conversation. They're avoiding me. Paraphrasing.
Right.
But, I mean, that was a great answer.
It was a great answer. However, what an absolute mope. We were talking about Maxine Waters, who has oversaw the destruction and the absolute poverty of Watts, California, for decades, and nothing has been done except enrichment of herself. We're talking about Elijah Cummings, same thing. Yeah, thank you for walking across the bridge. Thank you for being part of the civil rights movement. But when does the accountability start? And I'm glad that Donald Trump called Elijah Cummings out and then called Chuck Schumer. Does he call him?
I don't remember.
I can't remember.
It doesn't. I call him Lucky Chucky. But, you know, here, last little bit of good news before I let you go for the day. I got one last little bit of good news. If you think Elizabeth Warren is coming to the rescue of the Democratic Party, which some on the left do, which is great, the Boston Herald released a poll yesterday. Head-to-head matchup with Donald Trump today, she would get clobbered. Clobbered, according to the Boston Herald, right in her own home state. Elizabeth Warren, Pocahontas, is not going to save the day. Megan, I'll give you the last word.
Well, I think that the more that the press becomes unhinged, and you can see this from Chuck Todd's statement, right? He calls Donald Trump unhinged, typical Alinsky. That's exactly what the press is, unhinged, along with the Democrats. And I say, enjoy the weekend, watch this. I'm going to actually wake up early and watch Meet the Press.
There you go.
I got to see it.
Megan Barth, have a great weekend.
Thank you, you too.
Always a pleasure. From ReaganBaby.com, you can find her. Let's check in with Doug. He's been waiting patiently in Grand Rapids. Doug, what's on your mind? Doug, are you there? All right, we'll try to see if Jason's stuck around. Jason, you there from Vanderbilt?
Hi, I'm actually in Gaylord now. I was on the road. I'm glad you let me go right after Megan because she alluded to something but didn't actually say it. You have made the comment that CNN and like-minded organizations are delusional about what's going on. I don't believe that for a second. What these organizations are doing... You know what, Jason?
Jason, hold your thought. I want to get your whole thought in. I got to hit a break. Sit right there. You waited this long. We'll talk about it right after this on the Steve Gruber Show. All right, get back to Jason now, calling in somewhere near Gaylord. He's cruising along, doing his thing, listening to the program, which I appreciate very much, Jason. All right, what's on your mind?
Well, I listen to the program every day, and what I was getting to before the break was these organizations are not delusional. They know exactly what's going on. What they are doing is they are running the 2020 campaign for whoever the Democrat ends up being. And they've recognized that public opinion is very much against that whoever that candidate is, and they are trying right now to start shaping public opinion for whoever that candidate is going to be.
How do they not figure out, though, Jason? They've been doing this since, the middle of 2015. They ran against every Republican, attacked every one of them. Donald Trump came out on top. The press was very much in cahoots with the Clinton campaign, and yet they keep going back to the same well, even though it was soundly rejected in every place except places like California and the Northeast. Across this country, high and wide, it was rejected, and yet you're right, they keep going back to the same well. Why do they not get it?
Well, I never said they were smart.
Well, they're insulated, I think. I don't think they ever get out of the city. They're in a bubble. They're in their own little personal cave. They're in their own private Idaho, as the B-52s would say, right?
Well, they're ideologues. They have an agenda and they have an idea, and their ideas, at the end of the day, blind them to what's really going on in the world, what's really going on in public opinion. And, I believe these people, a lot of them, if they did get out and see it, it wouldn't register because their ideas blind them to what's really going on.
Jason, I appreciate you listening, and I appreciate you calling, and keep listening every day. We do the best we can. Thank you very much. All right, so this is my Donald Trump song. So, because I think people aren't getting it. They're just not seeing what he's doing. They're not figuring out the Democrats completely lost. Weird, huh? Keep the faith, my friends. We'll talk soon. This is the Steve Gruber Show.
I'm just a soul whose intentions are good. Oh, Lord, please don't let me be misunderstood.